Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. Tonight we are going to do a run-through called Assessing 101. This is the basics, all about the property card, all about the exemptions and the credits that the city offers. So what we'd like to do tonight is start by simply explaining to residents the very basics of their property card and walking you through it step by step. My name is Kim Kleiner, and I had the pleasure of joining the assessing department in May of this year. And I am very excited to introduce a tremendous staff: Doug Dame, Gary Turgis, Mike Mandale, Greg Turgis, Louise Brown, Lynn Cameron, Amanda Mazarol, and Cheryl Wally. This group works very hard day in and day out to value your properties, and we are very proud of the work that they do. I'd also like to introduce in the audience two of our Board of Assessors, Dan Hansberry and Bob Early. We thank them for joining us this evening. We're going to start tonight with a little bit of a video clip to help you understand the role of your assessors.
So, there's a lot of misunderstanding about the role of assessors and how they affect the property tax that homeowners pay. When someone hears the term assessor, they seem to think of a scary figure reaching for their wallet. Not so. Assessors don't set tax rates. Assessors don't chase tax dollars. An assessor is interested in fairly determining property values, and they take great pride in it. Property tax is determined by a simple formula. Assessors only affect one of these variables, the value, and they do so with incredible accuracy. Assessors aren't tax collectors or even tax setters. They're just fellow taxpayers, and their primary goal is to make everything fair and equitable. Imagine that you're in a restaurant with two friends. One orders a hot dog, one orders a plate of caviar, and you order a steak. The waiter comes to the table with a total bill of $100, but he doesn't know how much each of you should pay. If everyone paid the same amount, the guy who ordered the caviar might be happy. But what about the guy who ordered the hot dog? Enter assessors. The food is your property. Just like these meals, some people's property is worth more than others. And it's the assessor's job to determine how much each property is worth. That's it. So in the same way the value of these menu items would need to be determined, an assessor places value on properties to ensure fairness and equity. After the assessor determines the value of each property, local governing bodies will set their budgets for the coming year. They set the tax rate in order to produce the dollars needed for their budgets. The value of a property does not affect the amount of property tax needed. The sum total of all those budgets is a set number that has to be divided up among all the property owners. So even if everyone's value was cut in half by the assessors, the tax rate will be raised in order to generate the same amount of tax revenue. The assessors don't determine the taxes you pay. They just determine the values of properties to keep everything as fair and equitable as possible. When you notice a change in your property's assessed value, that change is the result of a never-ending quest for fairness and accuracy. Assessors are graded on their performance, so there is a detailed system to get accurate valuations. First, the assessor looks at similar properties that have sold, their sale prices, and the terms and conditions of each sale. That's the reason your home won't just be compared to the place next door. Studying things like square footage, age, and location helps assessors determine how comparable another property is to yours. Even seemingly small details, like an extra bathroom or finished basement, can result in significant differences in value in two otherwise identical homes. Assessors maintain a thorough database of real estate information to make this process as precise as possible. Changes in value are typically the result of local real estate market sales or major changes to a property. Remodel a kitchen or finish your basement, and your property's value could increase. When you see your home's assessed value, you can rest assured that the number has not been drawn out of a hat, nor generated with anything but equity and accuracy in mind. Long story short, assessors are here to help, not trying to hinder. Their focus is accurate values, not tax collection. The only things an assessor chases are fairness and equity, and they take great pride in it.
So we want to thank Clay County for that We thought that that was one of the best videos we've seen that accurately describes the role of an assessor. So tonight, starting us off, is going to be Douglas Dame. Doug?
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Kleiner. Welcome, everyone, to our presentation. My name is Douglas Dame, and I'm one of the commercial assessors of the City of Nashua's Assessors Office. I'm going to present the front side of our property record card, pointing out components that you might find to be useful in understanding why the card is designed the way it is and how the information is used in the assessment process. First, if you look at the upper left-hand corner of the card, I'd like to point out some identification features. It is here that you will see the tax map and lot identifiers, in this case, sheet or map 15, lot 20. Just below this is the property location. The legal address of this property is 41 All Street here in Nashua. Moving on to home ownership, we have the title holder of this property, which for our purposes of illustration, we'll call John Smith. It is important to know that we routinely receive information of deed conveyances from the Hillsborough County Registry of Deeds on a weekly basis. It is from these deeds that our staff takes the buyer's names to establish a title holder of the property account with the city. The buyer's mailing address is also noted, and that usually becomes the address to which the tax bills are sent. Information concerning the previous owner of the property appears on the left-hand side of the card under current ownership. Jumping to the upper right-hand side of the card, the 5-digit account number is noted. That's also an identifier. Switching back to the left side of the card, you will note a section called the narrative description, which is meant to be a brief description of the property. Information includes the size of the parcel in square feet, how the property is classified, such as a one-unit or single-family residence, the architectural style of the property, the improvements, Cape Cod design residence, as well as other features such as the number of rooms, baths, and other physical features. Next, we have the property factors. In this section, there is a description of the zoning, RB for B urban residential, as well as a notation as to what extent there are public utilities. In this instance, the notation says all, meaning that city water, sewer, electricity, gas, telephone, and cable are available. And also there is an annotation regarding the topography of the lot. In this case, it reads level, meaning it's a level flat site. Jumping to the right-hand side of the card, there's an information box indicating when the last time this card was printed, as well as who last revised the card and when it was done. The bottommost section of our card is the land line, or as we sometimes call it, the land section. It is here that the land value component of this assessment is calculated. Following along, we can see that this is a single-family building lot consisting of 6,006 square feet. We can see that the unit rate per square foot is applied, as well as modifiers and any adjustments that are applied to this base land rate. The summation of all these calculations results in an assessment of $75,700 for this parcel of land. Moving to the top of the property record card, we can see a box described as in-process appraisal summary. The various components of this property as assessed are summarized within this box. They include the depreciated building value, the yard items, the land size, and land value. And the summation of all of these individual values is $240,300. And this is the assessed value as it appears in the far right-hand corner of the front of this card as well. Once again, in the middle of the card, we have the history of previous assessments information, where the last 8 entries of assessed value can be found in order starting with the most recent to the oldest. Just below assessment history section, we find the history of building permits for this property. The BPs are listed ranging from the most recent, dating back in time to the 1990s. The list includes the amount of the permit, if noted on the original building permit itself, as well as a description of whatever work was completed. A C designation indicates that the permit was closed. Lastly, on the right-hand side of the card is the activity information, or history of visitations of this property. Here, the historic dates of property inspection are noted, along with who performed the inspection, and the initials of the inspector are listed. Well, this concludes a review of the front section of our property record card, and at this time I will toss it to Gary, who will take you through portions of the reverse side of our card.
Thank you, Doug. My name is Gary Turgis. I'm a residential appraiser, assessor for the city of Nashua. I'll be going over some of the sections on the back of the property record card, starting with the exterior information. The area circled starts out with the type. In this case, it's a Cape style house. The story height listed as 1.5 stories, which is typical for a Cape style home. The living units equals 1, indicating in this case it's a single family. Foundation is concrete. The frame is wood frame. The primary exterior wall is vinyl siding. The roof structure is a gable roof. The roof cover is an asphalt fiberglass composition, and the color is beige. Some of these are just descriptive, and some of them also indicate value. We have the general information, which is the next section. It starts out with the grade. In this case, the grade is a C. The grade can run from anything from a high of superb to a low of very poor. Typically, the properties in Nashua run from good, average to fair. The year built is the next section. In this case, the house, it's the actual year that the house was built. In this case, it is 1938. The effective year built, in this case, says 1964. The effective year built is where the depreciation is calculated from, and that's for the structure. An example would be if you had a house that was built in 1900, chances are that there have been some updates and improvements made to that property that no longer indicate that the house is a 1900 built. So the effective year built would be adjusted to indicate when those changes, what those depreciation would be from. In the example in front of you, the updates affecting the structure have been estimated to be the equivalent of a home that would depreciate from 1964. Then we have the interior information. We start with the primary interior wall. In this case, it's drywall. Typical homes in Nashua, for the majority, are either drywall or plaster. The primary floor in this house is hardwood. The secondary floor is carpet, and in this case, the carpet is 50% and the hardwood is 50%. That doesn't always happen that way, but in this case, it's 50% each for hardwood and carpet. Basement floor is concrete. The electrical and the insulation is typical for a house built at this time frame. The heat is oil heat with forced hot air as a heating type. And the home has no central air conditioning. You can see that the space is left blank where it says % AC. Next, we go to the bath and the kitchen features. In the case of the property that you have in front of you, the full baths, there are 2. They are both in average condition. And again, the bath grades can run anywhere from excellent to dilapidated. Similar to the baths is the kitchen. We have 1 kitchen. In this case, it's a single-family home that only has 1 kitchen. The grade, again, on this one is average, and the grade can run from excellent to dilapidated. If you go to the bottom of the slide, on the bottom of the page on the back of this card here, we have the special features and yard items. Yard items are typically anything that is not attached to the base structure. Some things that would fit into this category would be like a shed or an in-ground swimming pool. In this case here, we have a 48 square foot shed that's stick-built shed versus a metal shed or something that might be Rubbermaid or vinyl. Special features are anything that could be attached to the house, such as a fireplace. Next, I'd like to go to the section that's circled with the sketch. The sketch of the building is shown here. If you have a townhouse or garden-style condominium, you probably won't have a sketch. They are typically listed as lump sums for the sub-areas. The sub-areas are the different components that make up the entire structure. In the sample that we have right here, I'm going to start at the top and try and work my way down left to right. So we'll start off with the patio, the 10 by 6 PAT, which represents a patio. Down below that and slightly to the left, we have a 16 by 16 EFP, which represents an enclosed porch. An enclosed porch is typically a part of the building that's fully enclosed, including windows, but has no heat. Therefore, it is not considered part of the living square footage. Directly to the right of that, we have a three levels of sub-area. Starts off with the TQS at the top. Right below that is the FFL, and below that is BMT. TQS represents 3/4 story. In this case, because it's a Cape-style home, the top level of the home, which is the second floor in this case, is not a full boxed area. It has a slope to the front, so it's not a full 100% square footage on the top floor, so it's labeled as a 3/4 story. Right below that is FFL, which would be your first floor living area, and below that would be BMT, which represents unfinished basement. Directly to the right of that is another section, 20 by 9. Again, it has the 3/4 story above the first floor level. The difference in this case is it has a code listed as FBM. The FBM stands for finished basement. The difference between this is the finished basement versus the unfinished basement in the previous section that I discussed. And then right in the front, we have an 8 by 5 EFP. Again, that represents for an enclosed porch. If you look at the bottom of the page below the sketch, you will see a picture. A picture of the front of the structure, and to show you where the sketch part matches with the photo. If you look at the 8 by 5 enclosed porch, it's the area that's directly in front of the open area where that picket fence is. So that's how the sketch and the photo kind of tie into each other, working its way back. The next part I'd like to talk about is the section right above the photo. This is known as the sub-area. These sub-areas are calculated off of the sketch that we discussed previously. If you look at in the sub-area section, the last line is PAT. It's for the patio. You'll see 160 square feet. That is the calculation based on the patio that we talked about, the 10 by 16 patio, which gives you the 160 square feet. Likewise, the first floor areas will go to the big box there that was 25 by 20 and the 20 by 9 areas. You calculate the two of those and it comes up to 680 square feet. If you look at the sub-area, the top sub-area indicates FFL, which stands for the first floor level. You'll see the 680 square feet. And going back to the 3/4 story, where the TQS is, those two boxes are still the same. You have a 25 by 20 area and a 20 by 9 area, bringing you the 680 square feet, but because of the roof line of the home, it's 3/4 story, so it's multiplied by 75%, which gives you a total of 510 square feet because of the roof line. I would like to now turn the presentation over to Mike Mandiel, who will take care of the next section of the presentation. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Mike Mandiel. I'm one of the residential assessors here for the City of Nashua. I'm going to take you through the last few sections of the property record card. First is the comment section. This is where we note changes made to the property record card. These notes may appear to be cryptic, but that's because we abbreviate a lot to save space. The last comment, written in 2017, notes the removal of an open frame porch, a wood deck, and a portion of the patio, with the addition of an enclosed frame porch. It also states for 2018, which means that the changes were effective for the subsequent tax year. Greg Turgis is going to go over this in detail later, but quickly stated, we can only assess for the current tax year whatever is on the property as of April 1st. The next section I'd like to point out is the depreciation section. This section it's typically based on age and physical condition of the building, but it can also take in any functional, economic, obsolescence, or any possible conditions placed on the building. Next, we have condominium information, and this is only for informational purposes only. Here we note the location and the name of the condominium. If it happens to be a garden-style condominium, we will also note the floor that it's on. Next, we have the calculation summary. I'll start off by just saying that we commonly refer to this area as the weeds. Actually, it looks a lot more complicated than it really is. This area details the calculations used to determine the rate per square foot for the finished areas that's located in the sub-area. I'll show you that in a second. And also the depreciated total. That's the building value with the depreciation factored in. And if I can manage this, I'm going to just step aside and point these 5 key values I'd like to point out. Okay. So the first one is the adjusted rate for the square footage of the finished area. In this case, it's $138.08. This value here is also used in the sub area here for the first floor and the 3/4 story. The next we have the other features, which Gary pointed out as the bath and the kitchen. It also includes such things as the heating and the air conditioning system. After that, we have the adjusted total, which in this case would be the total of the sub-areas, which is $205,896, plus the other features, which is $27,500, and that gets us our adjusted total, which is also known as the replacement cost new. Next, we have the depreciation, which is simply taking the adjusted total here, multiplying it by our depreciation, which in this case is 29.8%, and gives us a depreciated total of $163,844, and that is for the building. Finally, we'll take this number, the depreciated total, and we'll take the number here for the yard items, which in this case is simply a shed valued at $800. And we'll go back to where Doug started. We have it here in the appraisal summary, we have the building value of $163,800. We're adding in our $800 shed. The land value, which is $75,700, and that's what gets us our total assessed value of $240,300. And that brings us to the end of the property record card. And I will now turn it over to Greg.
Thank you, Mike. My name is Greg Turgis. I am a commercial assessor for the city of Nashua. I am going to go over some dates, some things that would cause a change in your assessment, and some of the processes that we use. So the most important date that we have is April 1st. According to RSA 74-1, your property's assessment is based on April 1st of that tax year. We can only assess what is physically there on April 1st of that year. So, for example, if you're in the process of building a house, you own a piece of land, you're going to build a house on April 1st, the only thing you have done is the foundation. You only get taxed or assessed for the foundation and the land. So some of the things that may cause changes in your assessment, if you already have a house and everything's all set, if you do some new construction to it, if you put on an addition, or tear it down and build a new house, any type of new construction will change the assessed value. One of the other things that will do it is any type of permanent activity. You pull a building permit to put up a shed, a garage, in-law apartment, anything along those lines, we will come out, take the measurements, get the information. It will be added to the assessment of your property. One of the other things we do look at as we're going through the sales verification to qualify sales to determine market value, one of the things that we do is if we notice there's any inaccuracies in the data, we will correct that through looking through the MLS, through conversations with the home buyer, the home seller, the real estate broker, any and all resources we can use, we will. Another reason would be a citywide update. We just did one for 2018. The citywide update can be statistical, which is what we just did. It can be a complete measure and list, which is currently being talked about to be done in the near future. A complete measure and list would be a visit to every property, measurement of every structure, and at least an attempt to get into every property and update as much data as we possibly can. Under RSA 75-8A, we are required to do this at least once every 5 years. It can be a statistical update, but we have to do it once every 5 years. We can do it more often if we choose to. Part of the process, or the main process, is data collection. We go out without data collection, you don't have a lot of information, but we go out, we visit the property, we pick up, do the data collection. We then take that information along with our market analysis, which we looked at through the sales that we've looked at. We've gone through, we make that data collection, add that to the property assessment record if need be. We then determine the valuation of your property. One of the other things that we do look at is the highest and best use analysis. Generally in residential property, highest and best use is your single family home or your small multifamily home. Doesn't happen very often, but an example of something not at its highest and best use would be an old factory building that has outlived its expected life. sitting on 5 acres of land, that land is worth more if it was a vacant lot. So that'd be a quick example of something that's not at its highest and best use. What impacts the value of your property? First of all, location. We all know it. The better the location, generally the more value your property has, higher market value, higher assessment. Some of the other things that would affect the value of your property would be the size and possibly the shape of the lot. You can have, if one person has an acre and the other person right next door has an acre and a half, they're going to have a slightly higher assessment. They have more land. The shape of the lot may affect the value of the land. If you and somebody else have an acre of land, theirs is nice and square, fits in there real nice. Yours is a long, narrow triangle lot. Because of the shape of the lot, the land value may be less because it may inhibit what you can do with the land. Frontage. Although we don't have a lot of bodies of water here in Nashua, but if you did have a waterfront property, there would be much higher value than being on a busy road. These things, again, we don't run into too much waterfront property here in Nashua. Age and condition of the improvements. If you have an older home, you've done very little with the property to maintain it, update it, upgrade it, then that may have a negative impact on the overall value of your property. If you've maintained it or improved it, then that may have a positive effect on the value of your property. You redo your kitchen, you probably have increased the value of your property. Quality of the components that you use. Again, with the kitchen example, if you put in granite countertops opposed to Formica countertops. Granite countertops carry a higher value. They are more valuable. You're going to have a higher assessed value based on the components that you put in. Some other things are special features. You have in-ground swimming pool. That's going to add some value. You have a custom fireplace. Again, high-end kitchen. Those type of things will affect the value of your property. Some external influences that would affect the value of your property, and this can be negative or positive, but if you live next to the landfill, may have an effect on the value of your property. If you live near the water and have water access, put your boat in the water, something along those lines, it would affect the value of your property. If you're right next to a highway, you hear the highway going by all the time, you see the big walls up there, that's why they're up there. They do affect the value of your property. Now, after you've received your December tax bill, if you do not agree with your assessed value, you can file an abatement with the municipality. That abatement needs to be in our hands by March 1st. It may also be postmarked by March 1st, but March 1st is the deadline for filing. So you receive your December tax bill 2019, you have till March 1st, 2020 to file for an abatement at the local level, the municipality. The grounds for your abatement: if you review your property record card and notice there's some inaccuracies in the property record card, you can file for an abatement. We're more than happy to come out, get the data corrected, and go from there. The most popular one is the overall valuation of the property. People feel that their property is valued too high, so they do the research, list some qualified sales, and file an abatement, again, by March 1st. So you filed an abatement, and we still agree to disagree. We've either denied it, or we didn't come to terms on the value, or it was deemed denied because we did not act on it by July 1st. You still have options. You have options at the state level. You can appeal to the state. You can appeal to the Board of Tax and Land Appeals or Superior Court. One or the other, not both. The one thing you need to be very careful of is their deadline is September 1st, and depending on which venue you choose, their rules for the deadline are different. One may accept the postmark, one does not. I'm not sure which one's which, but if you get to that point, you definitely want to check on that and make sure you get that correct. So now I will turn it back over to Louise and the administrative staff.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Louise Brown. I'm a member of the administrative staff, and what I'd like to do is go through our responsibilities out front. I will go through an overview, and then other staff members will go through in detail about what we do out front. So what we deal with is property transfers and updating records. So we transfer ownership due to a deed being recorded at the Registry of Deeds or court documents coming from Superior Court. We review deeds, plans, and GIS maps for accuracy and legitimacy. And we also process name and address changes, which is important, especially when the tax bills go out. We want to make sure those bills go to the proper owners. Our ongoing duties include assisting taxpayers on the phone and in our office, processing exemption and credit applications, preparing for Board of Assessor meetings, which is a bi-monthly process, data entry in QC, which is quality control. Any work that's done in the office is always checked by a second person. Reviewing and processing plans and caveats recorded at the Registry of Deeds. Processing property location changes from the planning department or fire department. Scheduling appointments for assessors. Responding to emails from the website. And we're also responsible for updating the information on our website. We do have a Board of Assessors. In Nashua, the Board of Assessors has the responsibility to establish assessments, approve or deny any applications for abatements, tax deferrals, exemptions, and credits. The City of Nashua does offer credits and exemptions. This is a list of what we do offer, which includes veterans credits, exemptions for certain disabled veterans, elderly exemptions, improvements to assist persons with disabilities, elderly and disabled tax deferrals, blind exemptions, disabled exemptions, solar exemptions, and we do also offer charitable, religious, and educational exemptions. And other staff members will go through that in more detail than I am. Tax credit versus tax exemption. A tax credit is deducted from a taxpayer's tax bill. A tax exemption is deducted from the total assessed valuation of that person's tax bill. So what exactly does that mean? This is an example of a property tax bill. This applicant has a veteran's tax credit. We can see that the $500 credit, which is subtracted from the total bill, appears on the tax bill as shown. It is clear what the person is getting, veteran's tax credit. How an exemption is applied. So this would deal with a disabled exemption, a blind exemption, elderly exemption, or a solar exemption, which is on the left side, which is where your assessed valuation shows up. So whatever exemption the person is getting, this is where it's going to be subtracted from. I will turn this over to Amanda, who will talk about veterans credits. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Amanda Maswell. I'm going to take a minute to talk about some veterans credits and some exemptions that we have here in the city. Currently, the city offers 5 different veterans credits. In order to qualify, the veteran must claim New Hampshire as their primary residence. They also must own and occupy that property here in Nashua. The veteran must also have served no less than 90 days of active duty and must have been discharged honorably. We take these applications year-round, and all that is needed to prove this is their discharge papers and their New Hampshire ID. And these benefits range from a $500 credit to full exemption. These benefits may apply to a spouse or their surviving spouse. Nashua also offers an elderly exemption. We have an elderly exemption for our residents that are over 65 years of age as of April 1st on the tax year. In order to qualify, they too must own and occupy their property and have claimed New Hampshire as their primary residence. They have to have resided in New Hampshire for at least 3 consecutive years as of April 1st. For our senior citizens, there are also an annual income and asset limit. For the elderly exemption, income from all sources from married or single applicants cannot be greater than $50,000 a year in their assets, but not including that home that they live in cannot exceed $150,000. These applications are available after the start of the new year, and they have to be filed by April 15th of the tax year, and the exemption amount for the elderly is age dependent. We also have a disabled exemption, which is similar to our elderly exemption, but it's for those under 65 years of age on April 1st. And the disabled exemption is $194,000 off of their assessed value. As with our other credits and exemptions, they too must claim New Hampshire as their primary residence. They have to own and occupy that home. And the disabled applicants have to have lived here for at least 5 consecutive years on April 1st. To qualify for this exemption, these residents have to be receiving Title II or Title 16 benefits of the Social Security Act. For them, the asset and income limits are slightly different than our senior citizens. For a single applicant, it cannot exceed $36,000 for the year, and a married couple cannot exceed $40,000 for the year. Excluding the value of their home, their assets cannot exceed $125,000. And again, applications are available after the first of the year, must be filed by April 15th. The last exemption I would like to tell you about is those who have been deemed to be legally blind by the New Hampshire Department of Education's Blind Services Program. With the help of their doctor, they get a letter from this department, bring it to us. They too have to own and occupy that home and be New Hampshire residents by April 1st. These applications are accepted year-round, and those who qualify get $94,000 off of their assessed value. And next I would like to introduce Lynn.
Good evening. The exemption I'd like to talk about is transferring of an exemption or a credit. A property owner who has a credit or an exemption and purchases a new property can transfer the credit as long as it's done before December 1st of that year. And basically everything just transfers over to the new property, but they do have to come in and fill out the appropriate paperwork by December 1st in our office. The next exemption that we offer is a solar exemption. Anyone having an operating solar system as of April 1st of that year can apply for a solar exemption. An assessor will go out, assess the value of the exemption, of the system, and then they can come in and file for the exemption, which would be in the amount of the assessed value of that system. Again, the deadline to apply, April 15th, just like any other ones. Unlike the other exemptions, the applicant does not have to occupy the home as long as they own the home. And then another exemption is the exemption for improvements to assessed persons with disabilities. The applicant must own and occupy the property as of April 1st. They do not have to be the disabled person utilizing the modification to the home, as long as that person resides there. So let's say their mother moves in with them and needs a ramp to better enter and exit the property. Then an assessor would go out, assess the value of the ramp, and then notify the residents that they can apply for the exemption. And the exemption would be given in the amount of the assessed value. It could be a bathroom modification, it could be an elevator put in the home, as long as it facilitates living in the home for a resident living there. And again, that must be done by April 15th. Getting the word out. We have information scattered around the city. First of all, back of your tax bills. It's on every single one of them. We have information packets in our office. Applications are also available at the tax collector's office. It's on our website. Workshops are held at the Nashua Senior Center and the mobile home parks. And we also spoke at the Mayor's Senior Summit this year. And we also have information on the back table back there if you're interested in anything, any of the credits or exemptions. And from here, I will pass it on to Cheryl.
Good evening. I'm Cheryl Wally, the Department Coordinator for Assessing.
And first, I'm going to tell you about the elderly and disabled tax deferral. If by the due date of any year an elderly or a disabled taxpayer still has a balance due, they have the option of filing for a tax deferral. The applicant must be a resident and living in the home as of April 1st. The applicant must be 65 years of age or older, or if under the age of 65, eligible to receive Social Security under Title II or Title 16. As of April 1st of the year of application, the home must have been owned by the applicant for 5 consecutive years if over the age of 65, or if a disabled applicant must have owned the home for 1 year. It is important to know that this would require the approval of the mortgage lender if there is a mortgage on the property. This application must be filed each year the applicant requests a deferral, and the deadline to apply is the March 1st after the taxes are due. For example, if the request is for this tax year, 2019, the deadline to apply would be March 1st, 2020. The applicant must prove to the Board of Assessors that a hardship exists in order to qualify for this. If the application is approved, this will reduce the interest on the unpaid property taxes as of the due date to 5% for only the amount due for that year the application was made, and not for any prior year's balance due, unless there was a deferral approved for those prior years. Charitable, religious, and educational exemptions. For properties that are owned by a charitable, religious, or educational organization, the City of Nashua does offer a property tax exemption if the property is owned, used, and occupied by the organization for the purpose or mission for which the organization was created. This application, or A9 form, as it is called, must be filed each year by April 15th, and each year it is reviewed to determine the criteria are met for each property to receive this exemption. On that note, it is important to explain why verifying the data that is submitted to the assessing department is important. It's a very important part of our job. For each exemption or credit that is approved, each tax dollar that is lost must be paid by the rest of the taxpayers in this municipality. So it is very important that the information submitted by the applicant to the assessing department is verified to assure that the applicant indeed qualifies to receive the property tax exemption or credit. If you would like to contact us, our phone number is 603-589-3050. If you prefer not to call and would just like to email, our email address is assesshelp@nashuanh.gov. If you'd like a property card for your property, earlier on you saw the property card with all the data. If you like one specific for your property, you're welcome to email the office at assesshelp@nashuanh.gov, and one will be sent to you promptly. The website for the assessing department is www.nashuanh.gov/assessing, and I'm going to go there. Give you an idea of how nice it is. Okay, here is the assessing page of the city's website. Here you will find whatever you need to file an abatement or to just verify that you're being fairly assessed. Very important in the abatement process, as Greg explained, are the property sales. You need to check the property sales and only qualified sales to verify that your assessment is right around market value. And that's a very nice program. The GIS maps. This is a very nice mapping system. I strongly encourage everybody to go in here, check it out, play around with it, see what data is there. I'll show you a little bit right now about the building we are in, City Hall. You type in the address up here in the upper left corner. You click on the property when it comes down there. and it outlines the property that you searched for in red. There's a small text box here you can move around, and it gives data on the property that you searched for. Down here in the lower right-hand corner, you'll see the option of popping up different aerials. We do take aerial photos every couple of years, and it's used by the various departments in the city for their various missions. This is the City Hall, an overview aerial, and you can click up here, go into the layers, and get dimensions of property and various other data. It's a very nice system. You can zoom out, get an overview of your neighborhood, or zoom in. And the more you zoom in, you get more data available to you in the layers. That's a very nice system. We'll go back to the assessing page. We have property data. So if we were to type in, just type in the street name, we'll type in Main Street. And we'll pop up City Hall. Let's go down here. This is the City Hall data for the building we're in. You can click up here on the blue tabs at the top of the screen and get data specific to the interior of the building, data specific to the exterior, and then the summary tab here, which will give you the book and page of the deed for the property and other summary data specific to that property. Again, I strongly encourage everybody to go on there, check your own property data, make sure it's accurate, because if it is not, your assessment is probably not. That's very important. We have property tax lookup, where you can look up property tax information and also pay your taxes. Exemptions and credits information, as Manager and Lynn went over. This will give you information on the various exemption and credits that the City of Nashua offers. And abatements and appeals. If you like to appeal your assessment, if after looking at the property sales, you determine that your assessment is greater than it should be, you want to file an abatement. That is strongly encouraged. The burden of proof is up to the taxpayer, but all the proof is here for you to search for. The abatement form is available here only during the filing period. And let me go back to the... And these are a section on deadlines. Deadlines are very important. They're set by state law, and they cannot be, we have to pay attention to them when you file an exemption or credit application or an abatement application. Taxpayers' resources, residential. For any residential property owner, I strongly encourage you to peruse this area. It'll give you information on things like how the last update was conducted, specific information that you might like to know to understand the way that was done. Okay, I'm going to turn it over here to Mrs. Kleiner. Thank you very much.
So that's a little bit of an overview. We tried to fit in just enough information for one evening. We understand there's a lot more information that we could give you without making it a 3-hour session, and we'd probably lose most of you. A couple things. You can come into our assessing office anytime during the hours of 8 to 5. There are computer terminals in the office, and I can tell you our administrative staff will walk you through helping to navigate those terminals. I cannot say what great customer service they provide our residents, and we are truly blessed. As far as the assessment of your property, if you feel that there is a problem with the assessment of your property, please assess help. Contact our assessing department. We'll have one of our very knowledgeable assessors come out and assist you. They're there for you. They work for you every day. And so we thank everyone for coming. What we'd like to do tonight is if any of you have a question on your property, please let Louise know. She'll print you a property card of your property, and the assessors have tables in the back, and they are happy to sit with you and talk about your property card. Does anyone have any questions pertaining to the presentation that they would like to ask of one of our assessors or our administrative staff? Sure. On your own property? Yeah. Okay, great. We'll help you then. We will help you. All right, having seen no questions, we're going to end this part of the program, and our assessors will be available out back. If you have questions on exemptions or credits, one of the administrative staff will help you here on the stage. Have a nice evening.